So we've come to the end of our 4-part qualification for tutors. We've had a wonderful cohort and have really been through, covered a huge amount of the material that we set out to cover, but also learnt so much along the way. We started off with our safeguarding workshop, in which we covered how to keep yourself safe as a tutor, but also how to keep the students safe, which is the key part to forming that professional relationship between the two of you and to create that culture of learning that we value as so important here. We then moved on to relationship matters, which is really something that we've heard from many tutors is what they would like to learn from a course like this, is how to build relationships with a student, how to achieve positivity, respect, the trust of your student in order to facilitate and to promote effective learning. Our penultimate workshop was a really very inspiring and heartwarming workshop that we had last week on the learning loop, which gave kind of real theoretical structure to how to plan sessions, how to increase the motivation for learning, and how to build your lesson structure. This week we've rounded off with a fairly content heavy but also kind of interactive way of discussing SEN, mental health and well-being. We hope that we've delivered a course that both gives the academic pedagogical background, but also which gives the participants of ours of all levels of tutoring ability the practical advice that they can go on and implement in their sessions. And we'd love, we have our brilliant cohort here with us today, and we'd love to hear some of the thoughts from those who have been through it. We promise we're not forcing them to say only nice things about us, but we hope that they will. So I'd like to offer it up to anyone who's happy to jump in. What would you say that you have learnt from this 4-part course?
I'll jump in. I'll start from the first workshop. As a tutor, I've not really formally learned about safeguarding as such, because I'm not a teacher either, because I was studying business. But it was really interesting, I found, and I've definitely learned a lot more that I can integrate into my tutoring. And so I found that really useful. And the safeguarding kind of bled into the rest of the workshop as well, which really joined everything together, I found.
Wonderful. Yeah, that was once something that we were really keen on starting with, to show that is something that we need to take as fundamental as a tutor, working alongside a student, often young students as we do. That's a key thing to know, and really you can't progress without at least a good knowledge of what safeguarding means as a tutor.
I was going to say, I think the course has highlighted the multidimensional aspects of being a tutor. It's not just about the academic side, but it's about pulling in so much more. Our jobs as tutors we're tutors, we're mentors for younger people, younger learners. We're inspiring them, hopefully. We're engaging them, we're having fun with them, we're helping to engender passion about that particular subject area, as well as supporting them through any areas that they may be having difficulty or weaknesses. There's an awful lot more to being a tutor than I think people immediately think of.
Yeah, and although we have realised at times that we haven't necessarily dug as deep as we could have into the areas that we've been presenting, that's because we're trying to cover really the large amount of material that there is around these 4 topics. I know at times we've had hands up, people brimming to add more and more info, and we really value that. For those listening, one of the real, we think, flagships of this course is the continuing conversation channel that we have on the platform Slack. This allows participants to add their own thoughts after the sessions. It allows for us to give the bonus material that we don't have the time in the very kind of jam-packed 2 hours that we have for each workshop. It allows us to give them the chance to see that content outside of the sessions. So that's always been a real plus of this course.
Yeah, I would just add in there that as someone that's quite new to tutoring, I particularly found the Learning Loop seminar really useful in just learning how to plan, quite simple really. In particular, being able to listen to more experienced tutors and their views and opinions and even ideas on lesson activities, I've found really useful.
Yeah, and that's the beauty of an interactive course like this, where you're mixing with other participants live with that real human touch, is that those ideas are able to bounce off each other, really instantly. And we've used the breakout rooms. I think, judging by the feedback we've had so far, we've used the breakout rooms perhaps not quite enough, but we've certainly made use of being able to connect with the other participants. There's something about a course that is pre-recorded, which obviously allows for allows for you to deliver that course to far more people, but it doesn't allow for the changing attitudes of the differing opinions of the participants to come into play, and for you to learn on the job, which is something that we are always doing and always teaching to our students. Now, I really wanted to kind of add in after what you've learned. Is there anything that we can ask you guys now that you really, Rose touched on it there about learning about the learning loop? Is there one moment in the course that really stood out? Love those feedback forms that say, please pick out one bit that you really enjoyed. Is there anything that stood out in your mind?
I think it's quite interesting to think about what the role of tutors really is, and I think the breakout rooms really gave us the opportunity to discuss that role and to try and define what is the role of a tutor. If we're thinking about well-being, if we're thinking about learning, how do we describe tutor in a way that's different to perhaps a teacher? And I think those debates were really rich, and we kind of gained a lot from trying to think about that role. Sorry, my name is Eli, by the way.
Yeah, there's the medium of a podcast does not allow you to see someone's face, so that these are just voices speaking to our listeners, but maybe perhaps that helps.
And that the role of a tutor, not only is it different from being a teacher, but also it isn't just about imparting knowledge, it's about enabling.
I'm Julia. I'd love to pitch in that we sort of created this really responsive space where we were listening to each other really effectively, and that's the kind of responsiveness that we want to create in our tutoring sessions. So you have all that flexibility and agility when you're working with just one student that you don't have when you're in a classroom, or that your student doesn't benefit from in a classroom. And the fact that you can listen to them and find out what their interests are or what they had for lunch today and base a whole creative writing story around that, that's where the magic happens, isn't it? In that relationship, and just working out exactly where your student is and going from there.
Just building on that point, I'm Evie, and what I really liked about the course was just the kind of interactive, collaborative approach we took, where I got to actually speak to all these other tutors, which, I mean, I don't really know any other tutors, and I realised that there are so many different ways that you can approach a lesson, which I hadn't really thought of before. Like, I think it was maybe last episode before we all had a few-minute activity that was different, a way that we would usually teach to cover a topic or of a starter activity, and it just really opened my mind to see all the interesting ways that everyone came up with trying to teach a lesson in kind of unconventional ways. I'll definitely practice with my new students.
Yeah, and that's really one of the main things that we discussed when we were writing this course was how can we give tips and tricks, but not only that, but also kind of the fundamental basics of learning. How can we give that to participants so that they can implement that straight away? So that's amazing to hear, Evie, that that there is stuff that you can implement straight away. And in fact, we've learned stuff from you, Evie, that we've learned, the brilliant kind of methods you learn, and the content that you have added to the Slack channel as well has really directed our learning as well. Now, we just couldn't finish this summary without giving a word to Adrian Conway, our course facilitator. Adrian, are there any comments that you'd like to add to the end of this?
Yeah, I think for me the crucial element is well, there's a number of crucial elements, but particularly the link with the research and the practicalities, because I think if you've got the theory and you can then apply that, and that's what we've tried to do throughout the whole of the course, is to actually look at the theory behind it and then look at the application. And I think it was very important for us when we were designing the courses to make sure that there was some takeaway, something that you could go away with and actually try out, you know, on a practical level, and something that you could persevere with, something that you could, you know, it might not work first time, but you get the principle behind it so that you can keep persevering and working away. So I think for me, it's those links. And I think also one of the things I've been amazed at is the collaborative approach and the way that the group, the cohort, as you've gone through, supported each other with ideas and discussions, and the way that you've entered into the spirit of the whole idea behind the course, really. And I think that's been really rich and very, very powerful. Yeah.
Something I've definitely been struck by is the level of engagement from this cohort, and perhaps that's brought by both the kind of the range of expertise that we have here, but also by the environment that we've fostered here. I imagine if you were to look back to the first workshop compared to the fourth workshop, you'd see a real progression in the engagement and you know, learning how we'd like to present this course. But we've learned a huge amount from this first course. And we'd just like to end on really, what would you, it's a question that I'd be dying to ask. What would you say to someone who was thinking of taking this course, who'd seen this course, perhaps had friends discussing it? What is the one thing you'd say to them? Lachie, do you have any ideas on if you were faced with this question, what you might respond with?
Yeah, I would say if you want to take it to the next level, this is definitely the course for you. If you want to appreciate the kind of nuances of tutoring, the role of the tutor, and also the full depth of the role, then this is the course for you. And if you want to meet other like-minded people and be inspired by their passion, then this is the course for you.
Brilliant. Well,
I think, sorry, can I just jump in there? It's Victoria speaking. I think the word inspiring encapsulates the course perfectly. It's been inspiring talking to the course leaders. It's been inspiring talking to the other tutors. I've loved the crazy tangents that we go off on. You know, I'm inspired to look up other things. You know, I keep coming back to the Slack channel and going, oh yes, we talked about that, and there was a book about that someone recommended, and that's now on the reading list. And you know, none of this is sort of mandatory stuff, but it's actually fired up more of a passion for tutoring within myself, and I think that's been so valuable.
I promise we didn't pay Victoria anything extra to say those incredibly kind words. So thank you very much to all of our participants here. We are the course runs as with a start date, and then as we've mentioned here, there's 4 weeks of the course running from safeguarding to relationship matters to the learning loop, and then ending with SEND and mental health and well-being, which is an incredibly important part of understanding where your student is in that respect. So the next start dates will be, we tend to host our workshops on Wednesday evenings. We are incredibly flexible, the three of us, Julia, Adrian and I, and we can work around schedules, but the courses are held on Wednesday evening. So that's rounds off this workshop, rounds off this seminar, rounds off our first qualification for tutors, and we really are incredibly impressed, inspired, and appreciative of the level of engagement and really returning every Wednesday evening. That's not something that you have to do, but it's something that you have done. So thank you very, very much again, everyone, and we will see you all next time.
Thank you very much.
Very much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Bye then. Bye.
Thank you.